Reliability has collapsed. Not ideology, not morality, reliability. Welcome to Fourth Floor Post English. And once reliability collapses, states don't plan around values anymore. They plan around insurances. They hedge. They keep options open. Strong states do this quietly. Weak states do it loudly. And that's where they get trapped. Pakistan right now is not hedging. Pakistan is making itself available, and we keep calling this pragmatism. But pragmatism has balance. Pragmatism preserves room. What we are doing is attaching ourselves to a volatile power structures and calling it relevance. That's not relevance, that's exposure. Look at the external land we have chosen for ourselves. We are drifting, not officially, but functionally, into sort of UAE-Israel ecosystem. I don't know why. Libya, Gaza, reconstruction politics, ISF and all, financial facilitation, IMF and all, infrastructure, leverage, or even the UAE's rollovers. Every road bends towards Israel's benefits and Israel's privileges. And every small state in that orbit pays in flexibility, just like ours. Saudi influence, although we did make a defense deal with Saudi, is not leading anymore. Turkey and Qatar are constrained. Iran is under pressure. And in that environment, Pakistan is aligning itself with a system that does not absorb partners. It extracts from them. Trump, especially when he is interested in Balochistan, especially when Israel is interested in Balochistan. That's why the so-called peace board model should set off alarms. Alarms bells. It's not a peace architecture of the Trump. It's a client structure. Pay to sit, commit early, contribute later. And when demands increase, money forces political concessions, refusals becomes punishment. And this is where the Iran-US talks matter. That's why Trump wanted it to be happen under the Muslim countries. People are celebrating in Pakistan still that we were invited. I'm asking a simple question. What happens Pakistan in both the outcomes? Did we thought about it? It was a trap. Thank God we didn't go. Thank God all the Muslim countries didn't go. Iran and US can have a bilateral talks all they want. We are not entering this space with the leverage, if we are thinking about it, with this US and everything. We are entering this space with the liabilities. UAE repayments, Saudi repayments, monthly rollover negotiations, IMF, a nuclear state negotiating billion-dollar breathing room like a subscription renewal. That is not strategic depth, that is strategic shrinking. Now layer India on the top of this. India has completed its alignment loop. US proximity, EU engagement, managed signals with China. Dragons and elephants dancing together. Modi may be economically reckless, but power-hungry leaders don't need efficiency. They need dominance. And the dominance allows them to demand concessions later. India will ask for the space against Pakistan in Washington. And there is Trump. India will ask for the pressure against Pakistan in Brussels, and EU has already made its mind about the human rights issues in Pakistan. And we made this very easier to India by doing something historically foolish. We helped them reduce China-India gap. That gap was our strategic cushion. We let it narrow. That is not a small mistake, that is structural failure. So now Pakistan is unnecessary, sort of, right now for China. Untrustable, maybe, repressible for the US because that's what Pakistan is doing, and useful only for unpleasant files when it comes to US, Middle East pressure, Iran containment, dirty regional work. And this is where the terrorism stops being an internal issue. What we are facing now is terrorism as a regional instrument. Funding routes, India, Afghanistan, Israel, UAE. Facilitation routes, same. Narrative routes, EU and other countries. Labels like ISIS or Daesh that absorbed blame without triggering retaliation. Attack, arrest, a name, condolences, denials, and then funding continues and the same cycle repeats. And then you get the suicide attack in Islamabad, in the capital. And someone has the audacity to call it the soft target. There is no such thing as a soft target in the capital city. That's not a target problem. That's a method failure when you think like that. After years of operations, intelligence claims, kinetic confidence, IBOs, if the capital is bleeding, again, the conclusion is obvious. Capability is not the missing variable here. Legitimacy is. And legitimacy is collapsing internally. This is not PTI versus PMLN. That framing is outdated now. Or the opposition versus government. The real conflict is now personal thinking versus institutional survival, or the basic structure of the country. You can see the personal thinking everywhere. Loyalists being assembled, extrajudicial excesses normalized, journalists criminalized, officers punished, upward controlling, replacing governance, 28th Amendment, not even giving access to Khan despite all his health issues, despite all that. See, this model assumes politics can be subdued indefinitely. It cannot. It creates resistance. Resistance invites coercion. Coercion deepens alienation. Alienation internationalizes the problem. And suddenly, terrorism becomes insurgency in global framing, especially in Balochistan. Now, that shift is lethal for Pakistan when it involves Iran, when it involves Israel, Afghanistan, and India nexus. Even if we are trying to mend ways with KPK. See now, which brings me to the Khan file. This is not about one man, it's about pressure management. Khan is a release valve right now for the system. The system keeps trying to remove instead of redesigning the pipe. See, health is real, but health is also a leverage. Meetings are delayed not because reports are missing, but because system already knows that what Khan is likely to say. That's why exile narratives keep resurfacing. Turkey, Banigala, healing touch. But exporting a problem is not a solution. You don't stabilize a state by removing its pressure point without changing the structure that created the pressure. Any real settlement requires concessions, and concession cannot coexist with the same thinking that equates compromise with defeat. And that's why these gestures feel theatrical, because same thinking cannot produce stabilization. It can only postpone rupture. And look at the provincial contradiction. KPK can be managed politically. Afridi could have been or can be consulted. Dialogue is acceptable there. But in Balochistan, it's not. There, it's only kinetic, only force, no politics. That inconsistency is not accidental. It reflects fear of autonomous political space, not concern about the terrorism. Selective consultation is the institutional hypocrisy. And the hypocrisy is the fertile ground for the long wars. So strip everything down and the choice is brutal, but simple. Either personal thinking should be isolated, not humiliated, not destroyed, but removed from the primary decisions. A tweaks in Article 243. And real political inclusion should start, along with the foreign policy recalibration, with the new political thinking. Or this isolation deepens. We will see more loyalist, or the loyalist system will be hardening. External pressure will intensify. Regional actors will exploit the fractures and the state will become brittle. There's no third path. And the brittle systems of the brittle state, especially in the brittle state with the brittle system in this region, don't break slowly, they break suddenly. That's why I don't dramatize this, I don't romanticize it, I don't even moralize it, I just recognize the pattern. We are being squeezed from above by the changing global world order. From the side by the hostile regional mapping, Afghanistan and India, and from within by a governance model that mistakes control for stability. And if that doesn't change, then this is not a difficult phase. It is opening of a dark one.